regular council meeting to order for February 26th at 3 p.m. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Jones that council adopt the agenda for this regular council meeting, February 26th, as presented.
I'll give you that motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Ask for a motion from Councillor Nychuk that omnibus motion excuse me, adopts the following in accordance with council's procedure bylaw, February 12th, 2024, regular council meeting minutes and the strategic priorities chart.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Public comments, agenda items only, please. See none, hear none. Move on. Solid waste management bylaw. Peter?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to bring forward our new solid waste management bylaw. If approved, this bylaw will replace our old bylaw from 2008. Approval of the bylaw will help us better address loose garbage in bins, bin lids not being closed due to overflowing garbage, and eliminate yard waste in the bins in hopes of better recycling and avoiding possible hazardous waste in bins. The intent of the proposed recommendation is to introduce a new policy direction within the proposed bylaw. Once implemented, a communication and education plan will follow, outlining a new bylaw helping ratepayers become more aware of the changes and options as it applies to household waste. This will be an educational first campaign to ease residents into the new changes. Following our educational program, residents may find their garbage not picked up for non-compliance or ultimately fines. The previous bylaw was a mix of manual handling of bins as well as automated. This new bylaw will take out the manual handling of bins and focus mainly on the automated side of solid waste handling. There's been an issue with overflowing bins. When they're overfull, they're picked up at the operator's discretion, which leads to inconsistency in our service levels, as we have had multiple drivers working on the trucks lately. In addition, overfilled bins, when picked up, frequently spill, resulting in environmental impact, additional staff time, and unsatisfied customers. So some of the main points of the new bylaw will help to address loose garbage in bins, bin lids not being closed due to overflowing garbage, eliminate yard waste in the bins and possible hazardous waste in the bins. Administration has included addresses and links within the new bylaw to provide education in regards to recycling yard waste and landfill terms.
Thanks, Peter. Questions from council? One question I have is on your implementation, being the education portion and et cetera, what's the timeline for that till we get to ultimately fines?
I would think probably within the year. I'd like to take the time as we go through the seasons and all that to address.
Okay.
Have townhouses or whatever and chat with the public about that.
Okay. Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. With respect to the fines, would this be, we'd call out bylaw to the site and have a look, or would our own staff do it, or how do we manage that if it gets that far, which hopefully it doesn't?
If it gets to the point where we need to get fines involved, then we would address bylaw and have them come out and look at what the situation is, and then we have a rate sheet within there to work with that. So.
And we, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand we have photographs or photographic evidence. Our trucks take pictures of everything that we're putting into the back?
Yes, our trucks are capable of taking a picture. So as they pull up, if the bin is overloaded or has yard waste in it, we can actually take a snapshot of it at location with the address,
okay,
and the time and everything like that. So yes, we have the capability of doing all that.
Excellent, thank you.
Councillor Nychuk?
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Back to the educational component. In what formats, or do you guys have a plan yet on how you'd outlay that, how we educate our residents on the changes?
We're kind of working on that right now. Myself personally, I'd like to do some town halls. I'd like to do like the 4 sections of town and kind of do it as a bring everybody in kind of deal and chat with them, whoever wants to hear about it. So yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Peter. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council give first reading to bylaw 4620-2024, being the new solid waste management bylaw. The council give second reading to previously mentioned bylaw, and that council give unanimous consent to proceed with third and final reading of the previously mentioned bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You have my motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Chicky, that better not be your phone. As for a motion from Councillor Walsh that council give third and final reading to bylaw 4620-2024, new solid waste management bylaw, and the council repeal bylaw 4211-2008, solid waste management bylaw.
You have my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
FCSS community grants, Shelley?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me here today. I'd like to begin with sending a thank you to this year's FCSS Task Force for reviewing the applications that were sent out with the package and preparing the recommendation that is before you today. So thank you to Councillor Jones and Councillor Walsh, and also thank you to our senior leadership team, so Nicole, Riley, and Chris, for doing that process with me. So appreciate that. Just a little reminder about FCSS. FCSS is unique to Alberta. FCSS is funded to provide preventive social services, and each FCSS across the province is unique, as it's based on each community's unique needs. The majority of our funding here in FCSS goes towards our FCSS Resource Centre. However, we do set aside funds each year to fund our local agencies as well, to help us fulfill the mandate of FCSS and to provide the services and supports that we cannot do through our Resource Centre. We are also received some funds from Foothills County FCSS to help fund our Resource Centre so that we can serve county residents as well. Grant funds, as I said, are set aside, and so approved in the budget this year was $75,000 to allocate to our local community agencies. So before you today is a recommendation to approve the grants that we have reviewed, and I can read them out loud, so Mr. Mayor doesn't have to. $10,000 to BGC Foothills Club, $7,500 to the Community Connections Program of the Chrysler Redeemer School Division, $2,800 to the ENOA Equine Assisted Learning Program, $1,650 to Foothills Community Immigrant Services, $8,530 to Foothills County Hospice, $7,500 to the Family School Liaison Program with Foothills School Division, $10,000 to Inclusion Foothills, $6,000 to Rowan House for their preventive education program, $1,920 to Solace Grief Support Program, and $19,100 to the Community Connections Program for 2 programs that they requested funds for, which is their Dad Connects and their volunteer program. I'm happy to answer any questions on behalf of the task force.
Thanks, Shelley. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Shelley, this is a tough thing to do. I've been through it and I know how hard it can be. There's 1 or 2 new ones on the list here. Can you speak to those a little bit for us? So just to create some public awareness. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the first year that we are funding the Solace Grief Support. FCSS dollars have to be used, we have a specific mandate, and so we can't fund long-term counseling. However, we can fund group projects, so if people are learning in group settings, we can also fund short-term counseling. And so these particular funds are going towards their group counseling, and a lot of that is just walk-in. So some people might go once, they might go twice, and Solace provides grief counseling support. So it's a unique program. It's different than what we would provide through FCC and through a lot of other programs that require a diagnosis. This is for people who have experienced significant grief and loss. So it's our first time funding them. And that's kind of it for new ones, but we did lose a couple of this year, just for programs that aren't normally running. And programs such as FCIS don't always apply every year, and so you might not have seen them in a previous year, but we have funded them historically.
Good. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to announce for those present and Mayor and Council that I will be abstaining from the vote, as I do have a conflict of interest being a paid employee for one of these agencies. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Any further questions? I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Barton. The council approve the allocation of the 2024 FCSS community grants as recommended by the FCSS Community Grant Task Force to come from the 2024 FCS budget as Shelley described. Thanks for doing that for me.
Welcome.
Councillor Barton?
You have my motion, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Shelley.
Great, thanks all of you.
112th Street ASP, Sarah?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I would first like to start with a note that one of the property owners at 112th Street sent administration a recent survey that they had done with the other 112th Street property owners. So 8 of the owners who responded to this individual's survey stated that they were in favor of mixed commercial and residential, and one was in favor of just commercial. And they also posed a question about whether the landowners were interested in moving forward with an area structure plan. All 9 of the responding landowners said yes. However, it is important to note that in the survey that was sent out by the one individual, it said that the town would take this project on at our own cost. However, this statement is in opposition with some of the discussion from last meeting, which indicated that members of council did not want to use taxpayers' money. Anyway, moving forward with the presentation, on January 6th, the Committee of the Whole discussed the merits for rezoning the 112th Street properties, all urban reserve district. These properties are currently zoned a wide variety of different Foothills County zones, including country residential, rural business, and a variety of site-specific land use bylaw amendments that Foothills County had approved while the lands were in their jurisdiction. Through the discussion, it was determined by the Committee of the Whole that rezoning the properties to URD was not a desired step, and the focus should be on working towards creating the required ASP and FSR. However, it was also agreed that further development, except temporary uses, and further subdivisions should not be allowed, as that could jeopardize the successful implementation of the ASP and FSR. The Committee of the Whole also agreed that the town should take charge of this process for creating the ASP and FSR by retaining a consultant through an RFP process and acting as the project manager. However, it was also agreed, generally speaking, that taxpayers' money should not be used and to ultimately fund the project. The town can fund the project using its finances to pay for the consultant fees initially, but they will ultimately be rebilled to the property owners. If the recommendations that I will go through momentarily are supported, administration will draft a rebilling agreement and then put out an RFP for the ASP and FSR to be completed. Typically, a rebilling agreement would imply that the work has already been done and that the municipality is simply rebilling for that work. For example, when the city of Calgary takes on repaving a laneway, for example, the city in that case completes the work, then determines the final cost, so they know fully what the final cost is, and then they rebill the benefiting property owners accordingly. The property owners are then able to either pay the lump sum right then with no interest, or enter into a payment plan with interest over a specified period of time. The payments are then paid on the property owner's taxes, and future property owners are responsible should the property be sold before the full debt is paid. However, the rebilling after the work has been completed does open the town up to more risk. The town will need to pay the consultant for all upfront costs. These costs are roughly estimated at approximately $300,000. This is based on several quotes that the town received in spring 2023. However, these quotes are very rough. So it will be critical to get a formalized budget before the consultants start the work. Upfronting the cost does open up the municipality to some risk in the case of some property owners could withhold the payment from the town, thereby creating cash flow issues for the town. Council could consider requiring all or part of the cost to be paid by the property owners in advance of the town incurring expenses from the consultant. However, this might prove to be challenging, as the town would not know the exact amount that they would be charged for the project by the consultant, only a proposed budget at that time. This requirement may also add a challenge to get this project started, which would be a concern because this is now one of council's top 5 priorities. I will go through the recommendations. Whereas the properties on 112th Street were annexed into the town of High River on January 1st, 2021, and whereas the Committee of the Whole provided direction on January 8th, 2024, that the town should undertake the completion of the area structure plan and functional servicing report and rebill the 112th Street landowners for the full cost of these projects, and whereas the Committee of the Whole provided direction on January 8th, 2024, that the rezoning of the properties to Urban Reserve District was not desired, but that future developments, except for temporary developments or very minor developments such as home occupations that would not result in a new building, and subdivisions should not be supported by the Development Authority and the Subdivision Authority respectively until the ASP and FSR are adopted by Council and until subsequent land use bylaw amendments have been passed by bylaw. And be it resolved that Council direct the Development Authority of the Town of High River to not accept development permit applications for a property within 112th Street except for a temporary use until the area structure plan and functional servicing report are adopted by council and until the subsequent land use bylaw amendments have been passed by bylaw, and that council direct the subdivision authority of the town of High River to not accept any subdivision application for a property within 112th Street until the ASP and FSR are adopted by council and until subsequent land use bylaw amendments have been passed by bylaw, and that council direct administration to draft a rebilling agreement for the completion of the ASP and FSR to rebill the 112th Street landowners for the full cost of these projects, and further, that council direct administration to communicate that direction given here to the 112th Street landowners. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. So Sarah just read out the whole motion as well. Questions from council? My only question, Sarah, like, I understand where we're going and why this is important. we absolutely have to get the ASP and the FSR done before we go any further with these properties. The rebilling agreement, I'm not asking for an answer right today, but just when you're drafting that, I'm going to be asking for options, ideas as far as how we handle those that want to develop and when they will pay, and what do we do with those that do not want to develop right now and might be 20, 30 years before that property is ever developed. Because just because we do this ASP and the FSR doesn't mean everybody's going to be developing that year and they all pay their share and away we go. This is going to continue to be a little bit messy while we go through this, and just so that we've got some ideas as to what that rebilling agreement looks like between the two, that developers and non-developers. So that's my only comments. Anything else from council? Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. Rough idea for the ASP and like what's the cost going to be on this?
Right, so the rough cost estimate that we got, and this comes from 5 different quotes, they were all pretty vastly different, but the average was all around $300,000.
So we're going to be financing that $300,000 up front, and then that'll be tacked on to the property owners after. Sort of that's the direction you're going.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what the city of Calgary seems to do. I was also talking with David from Director of Finance or Head of Finance, and he did caution that could open the municipality up to some risk, which is what I was alluding to in my presentation. And I do agree with him that, of course, collecting the money after the fact, after the town has paid for the consultants, does open the municipality up to risk. But it seems to be generally what's done in the context of a municipality.
Thank you. Well done.
Sarah, is there any timeline that we have on the completion of the ASP and the FSR?
It is related to the joint planning area for CMRB. And the joint planning area context study does need to be done by August of 2025. However, I think that these can be done in tandem, and this doesn't necessarily need to be done at that time. I know that this is one of council's top priorities, so I think we could certainly get started as soon as possible, because it is my understanding that this is a top priority and council would like it to be done as soon as possible. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not waiting for the CMRB to be done before we start this.
Yes.
And the CMRB, the JPA4 context piece will have very little to do with, like, I'm sure the ASP is going to go along with. It'll all the guidelines.
It'll all comply with each
Exactly.
other. Exactly. So
It's not
don't.
going to be controversial at all.
I think we can start on it as soon as possible. Get the rebilling agreement settled,
Thank
and
you.
then put out a request for proposals.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion from Councillor Smith in regards to what Sarah outlined. I'm not going to reread that whole thing, please. It's all in your agendas. Regarding I'll just do Cole's notes. That the town of High River will not accept any development permit applications within the 112th Street East properties, except for temporary usage. Town of High River not accept any subdivision applications for properties within 112th Street. until the ASP and FSR are adopted by council, and that council direct administration to draft a rebuilding agreement for the completion of the ASP and the FSR that will rebuild the 112th Street East owners, and that council direct administration to communicate the direction given here to the 112th Street East landowners. Cole's notes, but the actual motion is written in the agenda.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Sarah. Next one, municipal reserve.
Yes, this one is about municipal reserve. The Municipal Government Act allows municipalities in Alberta to take up to 10% of the development area as municipal reserve, school reserve, or a combination of municipal and school reserve. MR can be used for a variety of things like public parks, trail systems, or public recreational areas. The planning for reserves, like actually planning out where is the reserve going to be, what is it going to be used for, what does it look like on the map, that exercise is all done in the area structure plan stage. But the land itself is taken by the municipality at the subdivision stage. So if a municipality chooses to allow subdivisions in an area where they haven't done an area structure plan yet, and they haven't taken municipal reserve yet, they must register what's called a deferred reserve caveat on the properties that they're allowing to be subdivided. That reminds the municipality to ensure that municipal reserve is taken at the time that the area structure plan is done. However, if a municipality decides that they are just never going to require an area structure plan for that area of land for whatever reason, then that municipal reserve really does need to be taken at the time of subdivision. So prior to the 112th Street properties being annexed into the town, Foothills County had been approving various types of planning applications, including subdivisions. The county had registered several deferred reserve caveats on 4 different properties, actually, within that 112th Street area, to allow municipal reserve to be taken at some point in the future. Municipal reserve was not specifically addressed in our annexation agreement with the county. There's no clause in the annexation agreement that specifically talks about the town being able to take the municipal reserve. However, it was the town's understanding that we could take it in the future because the town was aware of the deferred reserve caveats that were on those 4 parcels of land. Foothills County has recently come to town administration to confirm that these deferred reserve caveats were in fact registered in error, as municipal reserve had already been taken by the county in 1971. In 1971, the area was subdivided into 11 different blocks, and Block 11, that was the southernmost property, was actually given to Foothills County as municipal reserve. So in that case, they got the land. And then the county sold this land for $50,000 in 1990 to the New Holland dealership. It is unclear what happened to this $50,000. Municipalities are only able to take municipal reserve once. Had the town known that the municipal reserve had already been taken in 1971, then the town would have negotiated the annexation differently. Even though this area may end up as developing commercial industrial, it is still critical to have a Happy Trails network and extend throughout the community to ensure that there are active transportation options to get people, in this case perhaps, to employment areas. In addition, the town expects that this area would continue to accommodate at least some residential development for the foreseeable future. And it's important for citizens of the town to have easy access to parks and open space in relatively close proximity to where they're living. If it is determined that it's not possible for the town to get the MR or the cash in lieu, essentially, it will be difficult for the town to gain land for the Happy Trails extension and for a park to be enjoyed by people who live in that community. So at this time, administration is seeking direction from council on how they wish to address lack of MR in the area. One option is to request that the county provide the town with the $50,000 adjusted for inflation from 1990, so the town may invest in land to provide parks, open spaces, and/or a trail system to serve the area and the overall community. I'll open it up to.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I have a question about how does the caveat get registered in error and what happens at this point?
Well, I suppose the caveat would have been registered in error because the individual registering it just didn't know that municipal reserve was taken by the county in 1971. If it's not well documented, then I can understand that a staff member might not know. What can be done, they can all be, any caveat that's registered on title can be discharged. It's just a matter of doing the paperwork at land titles and paying a land titles fee.
So Sarah, we cannot go back to these properties at this time and ask for MR.
We cannot, because that block 11 was equal to actually slightly more than 10%. So no, we are not allowed to.
Okay.
That was what the $50,000 was.
Right. So legally, we're out of luck on that end. The only way we could ever get MR back or some land for Happy Trails would be a good faith agreement with those landowners that we come up with some plan through the ASP piece to try to get something back. And we're talking about $50,000. Like, that's gone. This is 52 years ago. 1971 was a good year. I can do the math real easy. So I'm 52, Jamie. That's how, like, I know it's mind-boggling how
I was going
can
to say,
compute
I didn't
that
think you
real
were
easy.
quite born yet.
Yeah, I was born.
It was you and I that were in day school.
Oh, right.
So, you know, how did this information come to us? Like, how all of a sudden do we have this?
Yeah, I guess it all started when I was organizing all of the information that the county provided to us, and it just seemed like there were files missing. So I spoke with some people at Foothills County, like just basically asking them, can you just double check? It seems like there might be some files missing. And if you say that there aren't files missing, that's fine, but I'd really like you to check again. So they did check again, and we got about a stack of this much paper from them that we hadn't gotten at the time of annexation, including these documentations.
Okay. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. I guess I'm the old geezer, right?
I'm not doing that.
So there's another option, and one is to ask the county for the money, which you brought up. We have an IMC meeting coming up in two weeks, couple weeks, or they postponed. I know they postponed again, but would this not be an item we could put on IMC and in a public context, have Sarah come and speak to it, same presentation she gave to us, and then look them in the eye and say, are you going to pay up?
I'm okay with that.
I'd love to do that.
I know you would. Can you bring that to the IMC?
Yeah, absolutely.
Meeting, please,
Yep.
Sarah? And then we'll have the discussion directly with Foothills County at that time and go from there. But the 50 grand, we'll figure that out, but I think just so everybody's clear, the MR is gone. We can't rewind that one, that's fine. So through the ASP process, we're gonna have to try to work with, as we consult with these landowners, as to what land we need and how much it might cost us to get it if it's, MR out in that area, are we going to be putting parks and everything else through there? Highly doubtful, right? But a small area for Happy Trail system, that'll connect to the other piece, across 112th to the west side, when that's developed someday, might be very important to us, right? So, okay. Thanks, Sarah. Council disclosure summary report. Sharon?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As required by the Council Disclosure Bylaw, each councillor is to file the Council Disclosure Statement with the Chief Administrative Officer by the last working day of January
Cody?
Afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is our annual report that we normally put together for you folks. What we've done this year is combined all the peace officer stuff and the fire stuff into one report for a little bit more easier digesting on your guys' side. I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing, but I'll kind of highlight some of the key pieces for this year. A couple key pieces for us is the high school program that's still up and running. We've actually gained quite a bit of traction in that regard from some sponsorships, some pretty big sponsorship, which has really helped us kind of grow and support that program. So it's been great to see. And we actually had to, unfortunately, not allow some kids in the program due to numbers. So we are capped at about 12 students. And this year, I think we had 21 students that had applied for the program. So it's really good to see the kind of interest in the program. So that's kind of been a big one this year for us. Throughout some of the fire inspector stuff, when we go through it, interesting trend there that we're starting to see is our compliance from our fire inspections year to year has actually began to increase. So whereas in 22 we were down around 54% compliance, so meaning we go and do an inspection, we find issues, we've got to go back again. Whereas this year we're seeing it at just over 74% compliance, so meaning we're going in and identifying issues and they being resolved right away, and or we're going in and not finding issues on the inspection, so which is great. So I think, like Stuart says in his piece, is that being more in the businesses as opposed to a lot of our remote stuff that we were doing during COVID. So that's been a big one. And we were able to secure a bunch of free fire prevention materials through a community safety network book organization that goes out to businesses, and businesses donate to that program, which then develops reading material and coloring books and things like that for kids. And we handed out 850 of those to the schools this year. So our capital items were all completed for the year, which is including our AED purchases for our automated external defibrillators. Our radios were purchased, and then we have the wildland skid that was purchased for the back of the pickup truck. That wildland skid actually was just completed when the wildlands fires kicked off in the spring, and we were able to deploy that truck up to, that one went to high level, I believe. So again, wildfire season was a kind of unprecedented season for us. We had crews pretty much deployed from very early on in kind of that May season, right till September. Hay River, Northwest Territories, Fort Smith, Fort Chipewyan, Edson, Yellowhead County, going through all the other places. We hit a bunch up in the north anyways, and we were kind of bouncing around up there. And that was either type 1 engine, so like a large fire engine that was deployed with 4 people. And then we had Steve DBN, who was deployed as a structural protection specialist for the province on our behalf. And then in some instances, we would send a truck with just 2 up there. So again, it was a pretty successful year overall. And we've got some interest in kind of some more development on our staff from that perspective. So again, the FEST program has been a success, working with both school divisions. Good working relationship with them, and we seem to be gaining some traction on that high school program. So last year, the kids were able to hit the burn tower and actually do some live fire training, so it was pretty exciting for them. And then Emergency Preparedness Week. So this is, we do use it as Emergency Preparedness Week, but we've kind of morphed it into an all things protective services, if you would. So fire has a booth there that does fire prevention materials. Peace officers will speak to, things in the peace officer world. And then we have our emergency management stuff that we talk about prevention and public education and those things. So with that also comes some of our partners that have joined forces with us, ATCO, Fortis. So some of our local partners in emergency management are also in attendance at that event as well. So that'll be happening again this year in May. So quick rundown on stats on page 14. We are seeing our call volume go up. It's kind of incremental over the years. Where last year we did 970 calls for service. So that's everything from somebody's smoke detector that's going off to a medical response to a building fire, car fire, and that includes town and county calls. So that's all calls that we responded to last year. And there's a bit of a breakdown on the type of calls that we responded to throughout the year. So kind of the miscellaneous topic there is the catch-all for the cats in the trees to the the weird one-off calls that we get for somebody stuck on a roof would fall into maybe that miscellaneous category. Calls for quadrant. These are interesting stats when we look at it. 38% of our calls are in the southeast, whereas 30% of our calls are in northwest High River, 21 down in the southwest, and 11% of our calls in the northeast. So again, you can kind of look at where population is and basing our call volume off of that. And then 15% of our calls were into Foothills County throughout the year. So our average response time, you can kind of see there, average response time in the southeast and southwest are right around that 5.5 minutes. And when we talk about response time, that is from the time 911 is called to the time a fire truck is arriving at that physical address. So that includes the time the dispatcher pushing the button, our guys getting onto the truck, getting dressed, driving out of the station, pulling up on scene. That's when the timer stops. So there's a lot of pieces that fall into that. So southeast, we're right around, again, just under 5 minutes. Southwest, we're right around between 4.5 and 5 minutes, depending. Northeast, we're just over 6, and into the northwest. And again, this is an average. We're just under 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, when we look at that, if a bunch of the calls in the northwest are occurring, say, right on the very tip, like around the town shop or something like that, and maybe not a lot of them are occurring on the far end, that will play with these numbers a little bit. So when you start looking at the far northwest corner, we're up around 10 minutes up there versus, somewhere down in Sunrise Loop or the seniors home there. Sunshine Village. I can't remember what the name of it is. Anyways, that's obviously going to decrease our response time into that area because it is closer to the fire station. So. And then when we look at the medical responses, these are our medical co-responses versus medical first responses. So a co-response quite often is ambulances within 10 minutes, and they are around the community, and we're now going to assist them. So these are on our critical calls. We call them deltas and echoes. So somebody not breathing, or somebody having severe breathing problems or unconscious, long falls, things like that would come into what that would go as a co-response. So we'd be responding at the same time as EMS. And then the first responses are when there is ambulances greater than 10 minutes from the community. And that would what would be considered a first response. And then I kind of did it for just the town, and then I added in the county as well. So because we do respond into the county for medical responses as part of our contract with them. Some of our highlights, we issued 12 burn permits, and typically these are burn permits issued in a lot of our annexed areas. So again, we're talking about the 112th Street, so on in that area where they were allowed to burn, branches and things like that in the past when they were with the county. We made provisions within our fire protection bylaw in 2019 to allow for that, because in past we weren't able to actually issue burn permits. So we now have the ability to issue those burn permits to those individuals. We completed 336 inspections, and then we have a note on there, $2.7 million saved. So basically what we look at is when we go to a building fire or vehicle fire, what is the dollar loss? So we look at what was the value of the building versus how much damage, and then that is where you get your dollars saved from. So if every fire was to get out of control, we would have caused another $2.7 million in damage. And then we get into the protective services, kind of our peace officer realm. So we've now moved from 2 to 3 officers, which has definitely helped us out a ton. From that perspective, last year we were able to purchase through our capital projects a new visible message sign. So you guys may see this one. I think it's sitting in the northwest right now on High Country Drive. So this sign can actually do not just speed, but it can do data collection as well as messaging as a piece of it as well. So I know Public Works has a bunch of the messaging signs that are getting older, so we thought if we could have this one do both, it'd be kind of a 2-for-1 deal on it. So it's currently up on High Country Drive right now. Some of the stats, again, when we look at our complaints, so on page number 22, there are, for our complaint stats or our file stats, 708 are in the southeast, 243 in the northwest, northeast in at 154, and 427 in the southwest. Our files, when we look at those, there's a total of 1,649 files. And when we look at files, that is when we start to look at actual complaints from people calling in our complaint line or coming to the station to visit us and let us know of something that's happening, to proactive complaints or proactive files. And what a proactive file is us actually going out and looking for things. So quite often springtime, what we'll start to do is look for those unsightly properties, where there's a bunch of debris and stuff in yards and things like that, and we try and get on those fairly early. So that would be considered a proactive file. I know we do a lot of proactive in the wintertime, talking about snow removal. So we'll actually go around and we're not issuing tickets 9 times out of 10. Most times we're issuing them a courtesy tag or a warning notice saying, hey, your sidewalk needs to be cleaned. So those are what we would consider our proactive patrols. So we're about 50% proactive and 50% complaints. So, and that was kind of the big focus of our new program, was to be able to have that proactive focus. And again, that proactive also comes back to education as well. When you look at our warnings, notices, and tags, our tickets were 263 tickets. Now, these would be traffic violations, speeding, stunting, seatbelts, that sort of stuff. And then we also had about 224 warnings. So again, we've stopped somebody, maybe, young kid, just opportunity for an education, learning moment, so we can issue those warnings to those individuals. Again, same thing on a bylaw complaint. It may not warrant a actual ticket, but we may issue a warning on the property and an education piece at the same time. And then courtesy tags, 147. And then, so you can see our files from last year were 1,294, and in 2023 was 2,027 total files. So that includes tickets and traffic stops into that 2,000 as well. So that's complaints, proactives, bike patrols and foot patrols, and then any tickets or warnings that were issued. So our big high hitters on the type of complaint that we're receiving is animal bylaw, good neighbor bylaw, traffic bylaw, and then our provincial traffic. So that's when we look at what we're receiving for complaints, those are our big ones. So dogs off leash, not picking up after dogs is kind of the big one there. Found dogs, or people that see a dog at large. And then our good neighbor bylaw is kind of a mixed bag. Could be anything from an unsightly to sidewalks to noise, right? That all falls under that good neighbor bylaw piece. So, and then traffic bylaw, that's where we get into our kind of our downtown parking or parking complaints, things like that. So some of the highlights for 2023 was working together with FCSS on our homelessness issue, traffic intersection safety, unsightly properties, messaging education, public awareness, and then enforcement of the traffic bylaws. And look, we really focused a lot on the RVs and frontages this year. And again, more of an education. We didn't issue any tickets for it, but it was more of an educational component to kind of help us bring everybody back together. 2024, big focus is going to be on school zone patrols, unsightlies again, traffic and intersection safety. We're working again with Shelley on kind of some of the homelessness piece. Increase public education, and then increase our presence on the happy trails and kind of those areas down in the Mercer Beechwood property, so on the bikes and things like that. And then we're looking at continuing with our videos. I'm sure you guys have all seen Ollie on his Instagram videos. So again, those have been a big hit, and we're going to continue rolling those out. And then we've now engaged fire and protective services in an after-school program at the rec center with youth. So where the guys will go down there in an afternoon and spend an hour playing soccer or volleyball or basketball, whatever it may be, with the youth. So, and RCMP have been involved in that as well with us. So, any questions?
Thanks, Cody. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Not really a question, just I wanted to express heartfelt gratitude to the whole team, because I think the efforts in Grand Prairie and Fox Creek and on the north were very, very much appreciated and very vocally expressed at the Alberta Municipalities Convention. And I think our team stood out as the people who were instrumental in helping with that. So kudos to you and your team.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'll bring that back to the guys. They'll
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I loved the report, the layout, and all the detail in there. It was definitely easy to read and lots of great outcomes. With the FESP program and with the youth, are you looking to expand that, or are you kind of like it at the 12 individuals in there?
It's a really tough one because it comes down to instructor and students and then equipment and all that stuff. So I think that is something that we do need to look at because there is some interest in it. You know, if we were only getting seven or eight students, I would say, we don't need to look at it. But with the interest that we're generating from it, I think there's definitely some more that we should be doing. You know, our big sponsor this year was ATCO, and I think that's going to allow us to help grow it a little bit too. So ATCO stepped up this year. ATCO supports the program in Calgary, and they're now supporting our program as well. So, you know, I think there's room.
That's great. I've only heard really good things about it.
Good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your great presentation, Chief Zebedee. I have a question about the variable message sign purchase, the variable message sign with radar.
Yes.
So does that suggest that you're going to be able to put this in a school zone, and those that violate the speed would also have a photo coupon?
No, unfortunately, it does not do photo radar. There is some pretty good restrictions around photo radar. You guys may have heard some of the stuff that come out of other areas that were trying to enhance or expand their photo radar programs, and everything was kind of put on freeze. What we did try and do is kind of part of the intersection safety was we were to look into red light cameras, and we're still doing that. However, the challenge is we went to our traffic supplier, and they were supposed to be able to do some of this stuff through some of the software on their lights, and it didn't work as intended, because for us to do any sort of red light, we have to have the data that proves that we actually have an issue, and to gather that data is important before we make any decision. I come to you with hey, we need to put red light cameras up. If we don't have the data, it's pretty tough, right? And it's a big spend, like big spend for red light cameras. So we first need to figure out whether we have an issue. So again, that's another piece to that.
Thank you.
Yes, this one here, the trailer, all it does is just does vehicle counts, speed, and time of day, so that we can have a look at our areas and what we're looking at. And then we also have some inconspicuous ones that we do put up around town. They're currently up today, and they'll do the exact same thing, and it collects all the data for us, so we can look at where we have issues. And if we have complaints in certain areas, we can throw them up and actually see what the speeds are on those roadways. So one of the things as part of our education is to try and get that information out to the public, because there are areas where people maybe look at it and say that we've got speeding issues, and we go and put an officer there, and we go and put our speed spies there, and our average speed is 47 kilometers an hour. You know, so it's trying to get that message out to the public as well, to let us know that we are out there and we are watching.
Thanks, Cody. No further questions? We'll move on to wildfire training.
Yeah, so this one here, obviously 23 was an unprecedented wildfire season, which then has kind of morphed into some enhanced training for all municipal firefighters that are going to be responding into that urban, urban interface situation in forestry. So what the provincial folks have done through AEMA and the others that kind of regulate this stuff is to develop some training. Again, I think Councillor Kinghorn and I were talking about it early on, and it kind of talks about fire weather, and it talks about fire spread and all things kind of forestry related. And it also then gets into how do we protect buildings and structures. So what's happening is this training is now being offered up to municipalities. We have an opportunity to bring a team from Clearwater County down, which is a WUI team, Wildland Urban Interface team. They would come to High River. There would be 80 students here on the first day, and then the class size was dropped to about 24 students on the second day. And part of that will be a theory portion on the first day, and then the last portion will be a practical day where we actually go into George Lane Park is what we're hopeful for, and utilize some of the buildings in there to simulate putting sprinklers on them. And doing what we call bump and run. So some different evolutions in the wildland urban interface. So kind of coming to council to let you guys know that this is something that is coming to town that we're participating in, and then also kind of seek your guys' approval for us to utilize George Lane Park. The dates are March 23rd and 24th, so there should be no impact to any camping at that point. So the idea would be to use the buildings and stuff in the campground and the roadways within the campground for that one day, the 24th. So looking for your guys' approval for that. And then the other piece that we would like to see if we could do is to put some barricades up. So while we're doing the training, to try and keep vehicle traffic out. Pedestrian traffic will be fine, but try to keep vehicle traffic out while we're doing that, because we may have hose lines run across the roadways and things inside the park. So.
Thanks, Cody. This one's pretty important, right? We don't have to be in Fort McMurray or Edson or something to be worried about this. The drought is already in play in this province, and the province even declared wildfire season a month early already. My nephew works up north, and they've already gotten into a wildfire issue, right? So our Mercer Hughes lands down there are the big one, of course, that can impact our southwest in a big way real quick with that environment. So we don't really need a motion. I don't think there's any objection from council on any of this with what you want to do. So it's just go ahead and do what you need to do to make sure we're all taken care of. So
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
And on that wildfire note too, we are nearing the end of our mitigation strategy. So we did the wildfire hazard assessment last year. We're just putting together the mitigation strategy now to bring back to you guys with some options for some of the areas that were identified by that hazard assessment. So hopefully in March here we can come back to you with some options and some plans to help with that. So thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Cody. Sunrise Meadows, Diana.
New Mayor and Council. I'm here to provide you with an update on Sunrise Meadows. So this subdivision was established in 2006, and unfortunately we have a number of outstanding deficiencies on this subdivision. We tried several times to contact the developer to complete the deficiencies. On February 14th, we break away with the developer. He provided a tentative schedule to complete the paving of the road, the walkway, and the laneway. This schedule is set for May of this year, between May and June of this year, and that's all weather dependent, as soon as we get the frost out of the ground. The developer was also informed that in order to have these deficiencies completed, he would actually need to do inspection of the area. And we've also provided a checklist for the developer to have a full understanding of what needs to be remediated. The list includes sidewalk, curbs, gutter, catch basins, overland drainage, and landscaping. We did also inform the developer that in order to get all these deficiencies completed, he needs to contact us to schedule an inspection. The developer is fully responsible to make sure that he communicates all of these works to the residents in the area and to make sure that all property owners that needs to be informed is informed of what needs to be done and if they will be affected. The developer was also sent a couple of other items like the FAC checklist, the municipal improvement template, which that means it's just a document for us to gather what assets we are going to document for the town. We also provided him with the FAC document, which needs to be completed by his engineer. So, moving forward, we are planning on working with the developer to make sure that this work is completed in a timely manner with the date that he has provided, which is between May and June of summer 2024. And with that, I'll open it up for question.
Thanks, Diana. It's pretty clear, and there's no decision that's needed by council. This is procedural through development agreements. This is basically for resident awareness that those that live in there, that the developer's responsibilities are going to be addressed.
That's correct.
Great. Any other questions from council? See none, hear none. Thanks very much.
Okay.
A lot of work, Diana. The old sunshades and bicycle repair stations, Riley or Chris?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. So this is a follow-up action item from the last council meeting. Council was given some diagrams and some drawings of what and images of what those look like, as well as the quotes that we received. And we're going to ask if council wants to proceed with them or not this year, because we're at the stage that we can remove them from the budget if we so choose. The first one is the bike repair stations. We did receive two quotes, one from GoGreenspoke.com for one station, about $5,500 plus installation. And the other ones, the ones that are more aesthetically pleasing, are Darrow bike fix-it stations that also include an integrated air pump. And each station there was $3,600 plus installation. Installation is typically on a concrete apron with some kind of footing or foundation to hold it securely so that it can't wander off. Information from both those companies have indicated that vandalism is a minimum. Tools do go missing every once in a while, but it's not a big issue because there are, you require tools to remove them. That's that quote from that perspective. The other one was sunshades. We had only asked for a quote from 30 by 30. We asked from a couple different suppliers. We only received one when we were preparing the budget. And that was for a 30 by 30 full square sunshade. That was for a fabric product at about $50,000 plus installation. And installation, because of our wind loads here, has to be engineered. And we also included within the $75,000 ask whether or not we put a hard surface underneath that, or do we want to be mowing grass underneath it. We had not selected a site. That was just as a budgetary number to put a hold on whether or not council wished to proceed with it or not. The site is still up for discussion if council wants to proceed with it, or if council wants to remove it from the budget, now's the time to do it so that we can take it off our list and not send it out for RFP. Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, big items, and I want to clear something up with the sunshade thing that I mentioned last time, that I had looked online, or my wife had looked online and found some off, it was Wayfair for like $7,000 or $5,000 or something. That does not work in the municipal world. These things have to be safe when we're putting them on municipal property. You can't just take something off the shelf out of Wayfair and plug it on a couple of rocks out at a park and pretend that it's going to work. There's a ton of liability if these things are not built properly. Regardless, it's extremely expensive. So, Councillor Nychuk.
Thanks, Mayor Snodgrass. Since I was the one that brought the sunshades way back when, I happened to be going through Fernie and saw one, and I thought, well, this is really cool, and we have a spray park by where I live, and I see parents and kids out there all the time, and I thought this would be nice. Can sit in the shade instead of sitting in the blazing heat that we're starting to get now. But at the expense that it is, since I brought it forward, I'll say I'm gonna withdraw my positive favor for it at this point. There's probably some other things that we can spend money on in a better context. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. So at least for me, the sunshades is a no now. And while I'm at it in terms of the bike repair stations, I'm a no on that one as well. So.
Okay, any other questions from council? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I do think that I agree with Councillor Nychuk on the sunshade opportunity. I may have to disagree with him on the bike repair stations. I think that as our town task force has shown us, there is certainly a lot of love for an active community, and having bike repair stations would certainly, I think, help in if people are stranded in the middle of the happy trails and need some assistance to pump up a tire or get from A to B. So I'm still hoping we can pursue that with a little bit more information.
Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Nychuk's comments. The sunshade is a lovely idea, and in current temperatures, it's a thing. We do need to have protection, but that's a pretty spendy, lovely thing. So I am not in favor of that. And unfortunately, nor am I in favor of what seems to be a really, really high-priced repair station. I know things are very different than when we were in day school, but I had a pump or some tools or the things, and we cannot, I don't think we should be taking on the cost of those things. It's up to the individual who has the bike. That's a responsibility thing. That's all.
Councillor Barton?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in support too of what Michael and Brenda said. I think we got better things that we should spend our money on right now. But again, they're both great ideas, just not something we should take on.
Nothing else? The repair stations, Kelly, I can't support it just because I've got repair stations attached to my bike with a pipe pump and extra tubes and everything else. You blow a tire, our bicycle repair stations won't have tubes for your bike sitting there, right? There's 14,000 different tubes, so I'm kind of with Brenda. It's your responsibility if you're going out. A repair kit for your bike is pretty inexpensive, and for us to spend $5,500 to $7,500 on these stations, just when you're on happy trails, you're not that far away from help. I think where you see some of these things where in Canmore or wherever, Cochrane somewhere, that we've seen these before. You know, if you're on that trail between Canmore and Banff, you know, you can be quite a ways away from some help in those things. High River, we're not that far away from help. So I got a messy motion. You okay with it?
We do need a motion, that's
Yeah,
correct.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Kinghorn that council remove the 2024 budgeted items of sunshades and bicycle repair stations from the 2024 Town of High River municipal budget.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. You have my motion.
That'll cover it for you. All in favor? Opposed? Oh, you threw your hand up at the 11.
Sunshade, I agree.
Carried. Councillor reports. Board and committee reports. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just got a couple things. That one of the boards that I sit on is the Highwood Memorial Center Society, and there's two items that I want to just bring attention to. One is in April 13th, they're having a giving gala, and one of the items that they're working over the next couple of years towards is improving the sound system, audio system, and lighting package for arts and culture in this community. So you can check out their website, highwoodcenter.com, for that. And then another initiative that they started last year that they are continuing this year is a volunteer fair, and it's May 15th, 2024. And the idea behind that was to bring together all the non-for-profit groups, and even profit, I guess, not community groups, not profit groups, community groups together to into one building and start to invite people to come and see the volunteer opportunities that are in town. So they're doing that. We had great success with that last year, so they're doing it again May 15th, and there more details will come out over the next few weeks about that. So that's it.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Snodgrass. I just wanted to once again extend an invitation to the community of High River for Coffee with Council, which was next Monday, March the 4th, from 10 a.m. until 11:30 at the Shepherd Park Red Barn, so Munro Barn. So hope to see a few people there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. I'll take my turn as I sit with the High River Chamber of Commerce Board. The second annual business showcase is this weekend at the previously noted Highwood Centre. I hope everybody here or perhaps in the community gets a chance to come and see the different businesses that are involved. Bring a food bank donation, please, and then entry is free.
Thanks, Councillor Walsh. Nothing further. Any public comments regarding any of the agenda items we've discussed today? None? Thank you. Notre Dame Collegiate Graduation Invitation. I'll ask for a motion from Councillor Walsh that Mayor and Council will notify administration of the availability to attend their event on May 25th, 2024.
You have my motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. And a Royal Canadian Air Force letter of support request. Ask for a motion from Councillor Smith, the council support Mayor Snodgrass signing the letter of support regarding the RCAF's request to light up the entrance of George Lane Park on April 1st, 2024, with the assistance of the High River Parades and Light Society, using the contractor panel as the power source and displaying a sign on the south side of the gate at the entrance where sponsor sign is located to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the RCAF.
I will give you that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned, 4:13. Thank you.